House of Horrors. Parents imprisoned and tortured their children. A 17-year-old Turpin daughter risked her life by escaping through a bedroom window and calling the police, asking for rescue for herself and her siblings. She didn't know the month or the meaning of the word medication, but she luckily knew the emergency number. When the police arrived, some children were chained to their beds. As is often the case in such stories, the evil wasn't apparent at first glance. Online photos of the Turpin family show smiling children and proud parents. David's parents later said the couple kept having more children because God called them to do so. Between 1988 and 2015, Louise gave birth to 13 children, 10 girls and 3 boys. Each child had a name starting with the letter J, and the parents dressed them similarly. In one photo, all the girls wore pink plaid dresses and the boys wore identical suits. In another photo, the family smiles at Disneyland with Mickey Mouse. It's hard to believe that the children in the picture rarely left home, were beaten, allowed to eat once a day, and usually bathed once a year. Some ended up with muscle atrophy and developmental delays, and all suffered lifelong trauma. She escaped the House of Horrors and created her own. Louise married David when she was just 16 and he was 23. The wedding took place in Pearisburg, Virginia. She likely tried to escape her own House of Horrors. Teresa Robinette, Louise's sister, revealed after the Turpins' arrest that she and her sister were systematically sexually abused in childhood. Their mother allowed a wealthy pedophile to molest them for money. In an interview with The Sun, she said, "Our mother should have protected us, but she sold us to a wealthy pedophile. We begged her not to take us to him, but she just said she needed to clothe and feed us." The wealthy pedophile was their grandfather, their mother's father. Teresa said this destroyed her self-esteem and believed it did the same to Louise. However, Louise seemed happy when she married David, a well-paid computer engineer, in 1985. Louise presented her life as fairy tale-like, boasting about their travels and occasionally funding her family's visits to her and David. The nightmare began. Jennifer Turpin, the Turpins' first child, was born in 1988. "We thought she had a perfect life, a perfect husband," said her sister Teresa. However, another sibling, Elizabeth, noticed a change in Louise's behavior after meeting David at age 15. She developed an unhealthy interest in magic and Satanism. They laughed that she smelled. The family grew quickly and moved frequently, which might explain why the children's nightmare lasted so long. They lived in Fort Worth, Texas, and Rio Vista, California. Some things are hard to understand, like why no one reacted to the suffering of the only Turpin child who attended a few grades of elementary school. Jennifer Turpin, the eldest, went to elementary school in Fort Worth. After the Turpin family case became public, her former classmates spoke out. One described how Jennifer was bullied for coming to school dirty. She was a frail girl with straight hair and bangs, often wearing the same purple outfit. Other students mocked her because her clothes sometimes looked like they had been dragged through mud, which she also smelled like most days. A classmate described how Jennifer used aluminum foil as a hair tie. The whole class laughed when the teacher asked her to remove it and throw it away. Chains by the beds heralded what was to come. In 2010, the Turpins left Rio Vista after David lost his job. Shortly after, their neighbors made a horrific discovery. The house was full of human waste, chains attached to the beds, and filth everywhere. Dead cats were also found. Despite this, authorities did not investigate further, and the neighbors eventually forgot about it. Meanwhile, the Turpin children's situation worsened with each move. Neighbors later testified that the children were extremely obedient, quiet, and only spoke when spoken to. They were rarely seen outside, as the Turpins increasingly resembled a cult rather than a family. The Turpin children reported that they were beaten, locked in cages, and chained to their beds whenever they showed any disobedience. Only the youngest 2 children were spared the abuse. When Jennifer escaped in 2018 and alerted the police, her 2 sisters and brother were chained to their beds. The children were so neglected that the police thought none were over 18, while the oldest was 29 and weighed 37 kilos at rescue. The parents only took care of the children for staged photos, cleaning and dressing them up to smile broadly. Sometimes they would take them to places like Disneyland because Louise and David loved theme parks. The end of the Turpin children's ordeal and their new lives. On January 14, 2018, two Turpin daughters, aged 13 and 17, escaped through a bedroom window. The younger was too scared and returned inside. The older, Jennifer, persevered and called the police, reporting that she was being held and abused by her parents. Fortunately, she was not ignored. Louise and David faced dozens of charges and were sentenced to 25 years in prison in February 2019 for torturing their children, who were found to have muscle atrophy and developmental delays. Two daughters will never be able to have children. Some Turpin children testified in court. One daughter said, "My parents took my whole life from me, but now I'm taking it back. That life may have been bad, but it made me strong. I fought to become the person I am. I saw my father change my mother. They almost changed me too, but I realized what was happening." One son said he forgives his parents, but still struggles emotionally with what they did to him, suffering from nightmares where he returns to the house of horrors. "It's hard to express in words what we went through growing up," he said. Some Turpin children admitted they still love their parents. "They believed everything they did was to protect us," said one daughter. What are the 13 Turpin children doing now? Some have gone to college and started independent lives. Information about the underage children of Louise and David is not disclosed to protect them.